Hey, friend, welcome to another episode of the podcast. And this is a unique episode of the podcast where we are jumping into a conversation on Luke 20 that neither of us preached.
I mean, I did that last week for your sermon.
This is new for me.
That's right. Yeah.
So good conversation around Luke 20. And specifically, I think we're starting at verse 20 itself, which is the question that comes to Jesus on paying taxes to Caesar.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's like a passage that comes around every April, May, like tax time. And people just always like to bring it up. And we're not. We're in the middle of summer and talking about what it really means. Lindsay preached and did a fantastic job with the passage. We are going to, I think today, hit on two specific points that we want to remind you of. And then we also want to use this episode, I think, as an opportunity in a third way to pivot us toward what will be the remainder of the summer. So I think it's worth saying right off the hop that this will be the last full episode of this format for the remainder of the summer months. So what that means right now for us is the month of August. We're going to take a break on this podcast, and you'll still see us on social media and posting videos that are shorter, but of this sort of longer form content. We're going to take a break through August. Justin, you and I are away. We're taking vacation various weeks. And so it just becomes harder to fill these seats and to ask guest preachers to come back in on Monday morning and also record the podcast. So we want to give everyone a little bit of a break. Those who are editing and doing all of the work behind the scenes, we just want to give everybody a little bit of a slower month of August, where we're looking forward to some rest. So we hope you are as well. And I actually think that this is a perfect passage to use as like a pivot point toward a summer or a month of August that is more geared toward rest and
don't spoil it yet.
Quieted down spirituality. So I'm not going to spoil it, but we'll get there. The payoff I think will be good if you listen right to the end of this episode. So again, welcome. Glad that you're here. And if you need to pause and go back and read the passage, please do that. Because we're just going to assume that if you are listening to this, you've also read this passage and probably heard the sermon from Sunday morning.
Yeah. And it's not a long passage. It's like 6 verses, or maybe it's 7. So this passage, Jesus kind of just is doing Jesus things. He's continuing. It is really a continuation from even just the past week, where they're trying, the religious leaders and these different sects within Judaism were kind of trying to rattle Jesus, get him to say something that was going to upset people or upset the status quo or the religious institution or the government or whatever. And it feels like it kind of like comes to a culmination here, where it's like, Jesus, are you going to choose your country, or are you going to choose the empire of Rome, right? And it feels like they're trying to wedge this question into Jesus in such a way where he's going to have to say something that's going to offend someone. And the brilliance of what Jesus does, which is what we want to talk about first here, is he skirts around it in such a genius way, not in like a way, because you can skirt around questions in bad ways, right? Like there are lots of ways that you can, not answer a question, and it's like, no, you're just avoiding. Jesus doesn't avoid it. That's not what he's doing here, but he reframes it in such a way. It's such a brilliant rhetorical device, what Jesus does here, that it's worth almost just exploring exactly what he's doing and saying here.
Yeah, I think so. A couple of things. This is the quintessential Star Wars meme. Like it's a trap. Like that's the beginning of this passage. Like it is the quintessential. And I don't know if we have any like rights to flashing that up on the screen on a YouTube video or not. We're gonna get like copyright infringed. But
I mean, it's a meme now, so I feel like it's
fair
it's
game.
Public domain.
But this is the moment in Star Wars where they realize it's a trap, and I think it's Admiral Akbar who literally yells, "It's a trap." And
I won't do that. I was about to do the voice, but I won't.
No, don't.
He's got that grace, that great little grovelly voice.
So that like this is that moment, and Lindsay did a great job of pointing out that it is like the culmination of a lot of moves. It's not an isolated event, and so often like with verses, this is a verse that gets misused all over the place. And not that it's misinterpreted or like used in bad faith necessarily, all that, like that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it's one of the verses that really typically I think gets like lifted out of its context and then just airmailed, dropped in to the conversations and contexts that maybe aren't operating with the full understanding of what's going on. So this is a passage about authority. And I don't just mean this passage. Like, we've been dealing with authority for weeks now. We're going to continue to deal with it. So next, like this coming Sunday, is another question. If you've ever wondered who you're going to be married to in the resurrection, I'm not going to have an answer to that, but that's the question that we're going after this coming Sunday. And again, these are people coming up against Jesus's authority and trying to wrestle out where his authority lies and what it actually is and means for worldly authorities. And so I think we see this one and we go like, this feels like almost the ultimate, like they're trying to get Jesus to like commit treason or to completely abandon his cultural religious heritage. Like they are trying to get him to commit treason or to commit blasphemy, essentially. And I mean, like neither of those have good outcomes.
Nope.
And so it does feel like everything's come to a head here, but I really like, and I'm going to use this illustration on Sunday. So if you're listening, like you'll get a sneak peek. I like how some of the commentators start to talk about these passages, and I don't quite remember whose it is. This is not my idea. But one of the commentators that we have, and it could be Fred Craddock, it could be N.T. Wright, some of these books we're working through as a teaching team, but they talk about stained glass windows. So if you picture this stained glass window in a church, certainly in an older church, we don't have any in our building. But what historically have they included? They've included pictures from the stories of Scripture. They've been picture versions of the stories of Scripture to tell those stories to people who didn't read for the longest time. They were educational. And so when you look at them, really often what you see are different scenes from a story, or different stories that are telling a bigger truth about who God is. And so they'll be side by side. You'll get like 3 panels. And if you're listening, I'm trying to like draw out in the air here poorly, 3 stained glass panels side by side that together tell something bigger than each of their individual biblical stories. And that's exactly what's happening here with authority. We're building out, we're fleshing out this much bigger picture than each individual thing story is able to tell on its own. And so, I think that one of the things that we need to do with this passage, and Lindsay did this for us on Sunday, is simply say, this question is not a question that's like abstracted from anything else. This is a direct response in their minds, and the people asking the question, like they are responding to what Jesus is doing. Jesus is teaching in the temple. Jesus is teaching as one who has authority and has demonstrated it, as one who has healed and has continued to preach the gospel and continued to challenge the religious authorities, the political authorities. So what could Jesus have done? Jesus could have, I think that when you're presented with that kind of question, I say this like we human beings, I think are really good at getting defensive, right? So here's this question that's not really a question. It's 2 questions. It is a trap. And, I could picture a response that's just entirely this defensive or even offensive. Like, I'm going to you guys are trying to take me out. I'm going to take you out.
Well, and I could also picture, so like, this is the way that my brain works when it comes to, which is a scary place. But if someone like lobs a loaded question at me, I want to like, okay, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna hash this out. We're gonna talk through every little bit of like detail we can. We're gonna get granular on this issue. Okay, you want to talk about taxes? Let's talk about taxes. Maybe there's fair taxes. Maybe there's unfair taxes. Well, how do we decide when to like? You can go to every like. That's where my brain goes. Is like, how can I win this debate?
Yeah.
How can I show them that this is more nuanced than you previously thought it was, and you're being too binary on this conversation, right? That's where my brain goes. And so like, that's where, again, I'm just in awe at Jesus's brilliance, which shouldn't surprise me. Jesus is God, but
like, there's no defensiveness.
No,
there's no, all right, like dummies, like you haven't figured this out yet. Like what's going on? Like,
he's perfectly calm. Like he doesn't take the bait.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing.
So non-anxious. I would describe Jesus's reactions to these kinds of questions, and even just to call them attacks, but like, questions with agendas. as non-anxious, perfectly non-anxious, which, I think is just a good thing to aspire to.
Yeah.
How can we respond, learn from Jesus to respond non-anxiously? Okay, here's another way that we respond, and pointing toward like why this is such a brilliant answer, I think, is we could, and I'm guilty of this. So, okay, so there's two sides to this coin. So that's a bad pun because we're going to talk about another coin in a minute. But I could see there's two sides to this coin. So okay, I could see. Let's talk about the merits of should we pay the tax. Okay, let's talk about the merits of paying the tax. I could see one side of the argument that says yes, and here are the reasons why. And I could see another side of the argument that says yes, and not paying the temple tax. Okay, so here's why. And you leave people with, well, so what? Is it good or is it not good? What I've essentially said is maybe it's good to do either. You just have to choose for yourself. And I think that in Canada, we do that a whole lot. Like just culturally, we like to be nice and we don't want to offend people. And so we kind of do this like, I'll ride okay, you're asking this question. Let's look at all the sides. There's all the possibilities. And I can see there's merit on this side and there's merit over on this side.
I like to think of myself as like an objective person that can sort of like be rational and reasonable about every position. That's,
Right.
Quintessentially Canadian. Yeah.
Yeah. Also not true. All the time, like for any of us.
Agreed.
Right? Like I think that's the challenge. And so like that's my default in this.
Yeah.
It would like if I'm asked a question like that, I go, okay, well, like, what do you think? And here are the pros, and here are those pros, and here, like, and what you've done is not answered anything at the end of the day. So, but what Jesus does is he doesn't take the bait, like he doesn't fall into an A or B response, which is, I think, naturally what we do, and that's where I wanted to land here is that whether we are so in the first approach, we get defensive because it's A or B. And so we agree with you, it's A or B. So these guys, they come to Jesus and they're like, hey, Jesus, is it A or is it B? And I think for many of us, we become defensive because we're like, well, it's A or B. And I'm going to defend B or I'm going to defend A, or I don't like either. So I'm going to just get really defensive. Or we do the like, hey, which like it's good over here, it's good over there. I can see both sides. So you just go figure out for yourself. We've still agreed that it's A or B.
Right.
And what Jesus does, and Lindsay, again, did a great job of pointing this out, is Jesus does, hey, it's neither A nor B. You need to expand the way you're thinking. So I wrote a couple of her lines down because I think they bear repeating. And she had a great line at the end of the sermon where she said something to the effect of, I'm not going to quote it like word for word. She said, Jesus reduces Caesar's significance to something that can fit in the palm of your hand, and then reminds the people listening that everything, like the everything all around, including them as individuals, belongs to God. And I think that that's what, where we fall into this trap, I think, is these guys come to Jesus and they want to know A or B. And Jesus says, the A-B vision of life is so small. Let me expand what you really ought to be seeing here. And that's where we can maybe pivot to what Jesus is actually talking about when he says, give to God what is God's, when he says, hey, like whose image is on this coin, because he uses, again, just in a brilliant way, Jesus would be like the perfectly non-cringy pastors with props. Like, and I don't know if any like listeners have seen these, like,
and it's gone now.
It is gone. The comedian shut it down, didn't he? Yeah. Or like my favorite one was pastors with ladders, where it was like every single person, every pastor who used a ladder on stage and then climbed up the ladder to like demonstrate something.
Yeah.
But like Jesus was actually like, I think he's just in the most nonchalant, not trying kind of way. Yeah. He was brilliant at just simply saying, hey, you all probably have a coin in your pocket. Whose image is on it?
Yeah.
And it's just so disarming, but so poignant. So he just speaks to people and exactly where they're at to push against, and here's the transition maybe to the second question, but to push against this A or B, and not even to suggest C, because I think that we often think that, well, it's not A, it's not B. What's the third way of
There's
Jesus?
a secret third answer.
Right.
Yeah.
No, he's saying that
Yeah.
to even think about life in this simple dichotomy becomes problematic. And you can see where it becomes problematic. So how do we expand our vision outside of, because what we don't want to do is go, well, now is it A, B, or C?
Yeah.
Fine, great. Is it A, B, C, or D? Like every single, like we could, that ad nauseum, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
The point that Jesus, I think, is making is the categories that we create miss what God is trying to accomplish in the world, and so that's where he pivots.
So then he responds, and the exact words he says are, then give back or render to Caesar what is Caesar's. Now I want to pause there for a sec, and just like, we didn't quite get into that in the sermon, but I think that looking in Jesus's time, you could imagine he could have pointed out and said, hey, whose roads are you walking on right now? Think of all, like, you could easily point to like the development that all of the taxes are being paid for, right? Or the taxes that are paying for those developments within, that they are not, even though they are, it's complicated, even though they are an oppressed people, within the Roman Empire, they are also recipients and beneficiaries of some of their what their taxes are going toward, right? So there's this complicated relationship there. So like, I don't know if there's you have any thoughts about that, but that's just something I've been thinking about.
Yeah. I do think it is, like, it's a complicated thing. I think what matters is the image, right? What matters is the image so Jesus wants. So let me back up. I think what we see in the Caesars, and I didn't brush up as much as I should have on my immediate history around who was the first to put their image on a coin. So that is an interesting thought that might just, if someone is very curious about it, you look into that kind of stuff. But the Caesars wanted everyone to view them as a god.
Yes. Yeah.
And everything. So start to put your image on a coin was a significant shift that happened under the Caesars in sort of the history of money and financial transaction. And really what it is saying is that everything belongs to me. That's what that statement, like, to put your image on it, like to put the image of yourself on a coin.
So you can imagine that, like, there's some rightful indignation on behalf of the Israelites, that, like, this is how they're interpreting this coin. And you can imagine a scenario where they're like, yeah, this is idolatry. This is not okay. The way that Caesar has framed this.
Yeah. So even to trace back the history of Israel, to say, shall make no graven image, like no images, right? Like, so it has deeply theological history and roots for the people of Israel. What I think it would have been a reminder of is, it's this very difficult, nuanced dynamic where they are an occupied people who pay a tax that is in force. Now, these are taxes. So, when we read through 20, is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? This tax that they're asking about is not an everyday tax. It's not a tax that would have been levied against Roman people. It's a tax that was levied against conquered people.
Oof.
So it had this,
that gives greater weight in some ways.
Yeah. So it even to say, and I appreciate what, like, Lindsay says, we can't just make this one-to-one, analogy of like, well, this tax is the same as our taxes that we pay. Now it's not.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why it's not is because this tax that scholars agree and that historians agree the people are asking Jesus about is a tax that was specifically levied against people who were conquered. And we can look through our own more recent history, modern history of taxes that were levied against states, nations that were conquered or that lost wars. There were reparations.
Germany after World War I.
After World War, exactly.
Yeah.
So, closer to that
Yeah.
than I think what you and I think of with taxes. So I think it's not even like we can simply say, well, they were benefits. They were beneficiaries of many of the things, but it was a tax that reminded them that day in and day out, they did not belong to themselves. They were not their own, that they were conquered by Rome and lived under the occupation of the Roman Empire, and it was enforced by military. And every single day as they wake up and as they pay that tax, as they live, as they move, as they have their being, they're using currency that reminds them of that,
Right.
with the face of Caesar. So, so I think that's the difficulty of this tax. It is so unlike anything that we have today, and I think it would have reminded them very clearly that they do not belong to themselves. Enter Jesus, who, in a way only he can, shrinks down what that means to nothing, like to something, like Lindsay said, to something that can fit in the palm of your hand. And so that's what makes his pivot to Genesis and to, render unto God what is God's, give back to God what belongs to him. That's why that pivot matters so much, because in many ways, Jesus is giving them their true identity back. So here are these people who are living under the weight of occupation, and nothing they have is theirs or belongs to, you can start to think about how mental and emotional, collective health of a people might go. And Jesus comes in and in answering this question does more than simply avoid the dichotomy. For anybody listening, he's continuing to teach in the temple. Well, he's continuing to remind the people there that ultimately they don't belong to Caesar, that they belong to God.
Which in a twisted way, like these people that are trying to trap Jesus, they hear this, and it's I think probably in their heart of hearts, like they know that what he's saying is true, and it's kind of in baked into their response. They're astonished by his answer, and they become silent. It's like they're like, I can't answer you any further. Like I don't have a retort that is going to continue this conversation. Like there's something profound about the fact that, like, in there trying to trap him, they were given a truth that was undeniable to them.
Yeah. So I think a more helpful way to start thinking about this for today becomes what false identities do we live under, as opposed to thinking about it in just strictly political terms. Well, is politics in and of itself maybe a false identity? I think that would be true
For sure.
I think that work and our relationship toward work is ordained by God, right? The truth of Genesis is that we were created in the image of a creating God to continue to create and to continue to work and to live and move and have occupation that is meaningful and matters. But I think so many of us create a false identity out of work, to the point where, like, when was the last time somebody asked you, who are you? And you began by just simply telling people what you do. So Augustine talks about the fact that we are what we love. You are you become the sum of your loves. So what do you love? Who do you love? What gets your affection and your attention in that way? So we have false identities today that I think Jesus is really pushing against here. Jesus is pushing against this false identity that these people belong to anybody other than God. So I think Jesus is pushing against similar false identities today, that we belong to anything or anyone other than God. Even I think, I'm sure there are sociologists who have written about this already, but I can't wait for, the 200 years from now, sociologists to look back on this cult of even like individual identity, right? Like a trend in our postmodern, whatever postmodern will become,
Radical individualism.
individualism in every single facet of life.
Yeah.
So even the fact that you and I can think about describing or identifying ourselves as individuals is a relatively new experiment within the course of human history. And so again, like what Jesus is doing is I think still so important, which is to pivot people's understanding away from these radically individual or false identities and toward the one created identity that every human being bears, the image of God. So that's why, you know, he like everything rides on that image and what it carried for people in his day.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like you look at a bill now, and like there are images of people all over the place, right? So I've not gotten a bill yet because I don't use cash enough to like apparently there are bills now with the King's image on it in Canada.
I haven't seen that. I've seen like we have like Wilfrid Laurier.
Yeah,
Got,
so
like
the Queen is on.
Viola Desmond.
Yeah,
On the 10.
yeah. I remember there was hockey on one, like a $5 bill when I was
Yeah,
growing up. A kid, like, you put like hot kids playing hockey on. I was like, we've made it.
So cliche.
We're so Canadian. We've made
Yeah.
it. Yeah, we don't help those stereotypes sometimes, but you know, I do think that it's such a powerful image, Jesus picking up this coin, and yet it is so not about simply money.
Yes.
I think it is about false identity. It is about false loyalty. It is about false hope. It is about everything that coin represented to those people. And the question being, Jesus, like, you know, are you going to support everything that this stands for, or are you not? And again, Jesus just blows back or open everybody's hopefully vision of what it means to be human.
So like there's at a broad level, like I think everyone can track with that, right? It's usually when we get down to the particulars, and where you look at, you know, a specific tax. You know, in Canada, you could point, and we're not going to get into like the minutia of it, but like say something like
Sure.
carbon tax or whatever, right? Where people are like, this is unjust. This is, you know, and I find that sometimes, you know, we can get a little bit obsessive over it, which I think maybe is a part of what Jesus is trying to reveal to our own hearts about like, hey, is my heart, where is it at? Is it going to just continually become obsessive over how much or how little or whatever taxes I am paying, right? And so like I think we can even get lost down a rabbit trail that way. And it's like we need to be brought back. We need to be brought back because we can get so obsessed that it becomes the thing that we focus on.
Yeah. So again, I want to push us back to Lindsay had a great line. I think maybe midway through the sermon where she says, Jesus is not apolitical. Jesus is just not politically possessible. And I thought, like, I stopped at that point. I stopped the sermon at that point, and I texted her that line. I was like, that was a fantastic line. And you know, I think that's the piece that we still fall into this A or B kind of trap of thinking, and we can become obsessed with those decisions. Should we? Shouldn't we? Do we not? Do we support? Do we not support? Do we like? Do we not? Now, what I'm not saying is that we should be apolitical. No, absolutely not. We are political beings. What does that mean? It means we live and move and have our beings in the context of a social relationship. Yeah. Right? Like, you know,
Live in a society.
Unless you're willing to go and live off the grid, right? And completely withdraw. Like even then, you're going to choose a community. We are people who live in communities. We have always been, will always be. And so you and I, we choose to live in a particular society. Now, I know people who have left Canada, in just to name our context, and I know people who have moved to Canada. I know people who can't wait to leave Canada, and I know people who can't wait to get in, should they be allowed to move here. Yeah, that is all. Like, sure, there are always going to be decisions to be made based on your life, your family, your occupation, a whole lot of different, your faith, how it informs all of these decisions. You are going to need to make political decisions. I think what Jesus is saying is don't make a mountain out of a molehill, right? Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's. He is so non-anxious and nonchalant about it. He's like, this is so far from the thing that matters. Let's talk about the thing that matters. And so I genuinely, I sit here and I go, this is going to sound so simple and maybe too like cliche, but like, I hope that people remember me for talking more about Jesus and the coming of the kingdom than about any political point.
Yeah.
Like
That's good.
I don't preach political points. Now, hopefully what I preach is taken and applied by people who live within the context of a political ecosystem. I hope that people make better decisions that are more in line with Jesus and with Jesus's kingdom because of who we are as a church. So I don't think that we should be apolitical, but equally, I want for us to focus on preaching, teaching, understanding, living out in context, loving like Jesus did. And insofar as that challenges our politics, I think it ought to.
Yeah.
Now, let me say one thing very clearly. If Jesus challenges everybody else's politics and never yours, you're not following Jesus.
Yeah.
Or at least, let me say it a little less harshly. You are not following Jesus fully. Because Jesus challenges my politics.
Yeah.
And I say some stuff and I'm like, nope, that was me. And that's not, that was not Jesus. Like I see something that happens, or I see something that's going to change something for me or for my family. One of the most recent ones that got a ton of traction in the church was the liberty of conscience on like religious free speech and religion being an out for hate speech. And so that's a very
And many churches very, very anxious about it.
very anxious about it. Yeah, absolutely. And are there reasons to watch and to wait about certain things happening in the world? Yes, absolutely. Like you should, listener, you should be, and this is like, I'm speaking to myself. My tendency is to just withdraw from it and just to ignore it.
It's all going to be fine, probably, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
But you need to be politically aware.
Yeah.
And I think that some of us need to be more politically aware, and others need to be less politically obsessed.
Yes.
Like there is a balance to it that really does matter. I'm so thankful that there are people whose entire occupation it is to think about politics from a Christian worldview. I'm so thankful that exists, that there are think tanks and that there are individuals who feel like it is their calling to wrestle those things out. For the everyday follower of Jesus, I really hope that you are talking about Jesus more than you're talking about politics. And again, like that sounds so simple.
Yeah.
But I hope that you are loving like Jesus more than you are talking about decisions that are being made. I hope that you are wrestling out scripture for your own life more than you are talking about how a particular political agenda is anti-gospel. Like you and I, listeners, like we need Jesus to shake up our own politics and exercise of the right to vote and et cetera, be involved far sooner than I need Jesus to challenge you, right?
Yes.
Or than you need Jesus to challenge me. And I think that's where we wrestle as human beings, because man, it feels good when Jesus only ever agrees with me, doesn't it? Just makes my life so simple.
That should probably be a little bit of a red flag, though.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It should. So, when was the last time that Jesus challenged you on the way you view the world and the way you look at it? And, I think that, again, the point from Sunday, and I think the point from the text is, don't let some of these small coin worldviews like eclipse your view of Jesus and his kingdom.
Yeah.
It is so much bigger than. But they can, right? Just like the moon can eclipse the sun. Like it is a thing that can happen. We can get so focused on the thing, whatever the thing is. And for many of us, it's politics and the like. But You know, really, I think what Jesus is doing is zoom the lens out, look at wider what God is doing.
And summer is a great time to do that.
Yep.
This is my
Great pivot.
not so subtle pivot. And so, as Grant said, we're going to take a little bit of time off. But I think we wanted to leave all of us with a little bit of just, you know, some things to chew on over the next little bit. And so as we talk about this coin that bears the image of Caesar, one of the challenges there is to remember whose image we bear. You know, we go back to Genesis 1, where it talks about us being made in the image of God, in the likeness of God. And you know, there's a moment I think that we can take here to try to just sit with that in a more intentional way. You know, I even think going back to the text here, you know, these guys, I don't know if this changed their hearts in any way. Probably not, but they have an opportunity here to have their hearts changed as they are astonished by Jesus's answer, and then they're silenced. They became silent. And it's like, I think we could interpret that and say, well, they were probably mad and then silenced because they kind of knew they didn't have a retort. But for us, I think that can look different.
Yep.
Where we can be astonished by this reality of us being image bearers, made in the image of God, and then to be still and sit with that reality.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is why I wanted to end here on this kind of pivot toward the summer, because I think it would be so easy for us to pivot and go, you know, something along the lines of, well, so you better keep coming out to church. You better keep showing up on Sundays. Like, what are you going to do through the summer? How are you going to continue to prove that you're a Christian through the summer? Like, you better not. You better make sure that you still, like, I just think that we can naturally start tipping toward the legalistic responses to Jesus. So you're like, okay, how can I prove that I bear the image of God? And what do I need to do in order to show that I'm living up to it? Like, I just think that so what does summer mean? Summer means necessarily that your rhythms and routines are going to change. For many people, it means time off of work and to reflect on a year. It means time to get ready for September and all that will come with school and launching back into that kind of school year. I do think it's an opportunity to slow down and allow God to challenge where your allegiances really lie. So if you take off work, like if you're on, let's say you have a week off and you are checking your email every single day because you just can't not do it, I go, hey, maybe God's trying to like reveal something about your allegiance to you, right? If you, when you have time and energy on your hands because you're not doing one of whatever it is, if you go so far down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, like maybe God's trying to, like maybe God wants to reveal something to you about where your allegiances lie this summer, what, you know, some of those false hopes are, what some of those false identities might be. And I think that this summer is a interesting time because for many people who go on vacation, they struggle to actually wind down. They struggle to be truly off. To shut it down. And so what I don't want to do is like guilt people and to be like, well, just be a super Christian then. Just like now you have all your time to give to only church things. Like what I want people to genuinely consider is whatever your summer looks like, allow it to be a way that Jesus reminds you first and foremost that you do bear the image of God. Like that is a truth that's found in Scripture. So hold on to it. Don't wonder whether you do or not. Don't wonder whether you're living into it or not. Don't wonder whether you've earned it or lived up to it. And this, like, just allow yourself to rest in the truth that you bear the image of God. And then allow that to carry you into whatever season is next. So I love, Eugene Peterson has this great line. Maybe we can end here. Eugene Peterson talks about Sabbath as a chance to play and pray. And I just think that that's Christians can sometimes stink at the playing part. And I just go,
just fun.
Wherever your summer takes you, allow it to encourage you and to remind you that you bear the image of God and that it is good and there is goodness to be found living into that truth. And if you rest there, all of the decisions that you make will be better. So
It's a good
Wind
place
us
to end.
down.
It's a
for
good
the-
place to end. We will be back in September. And so we hope that to be able to take these next month and just really take to heart some of these things. And we'll see you when we're back.